Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Hi, it's Haley from Your Clear Next Step. Did you know our mission is to help people have better workdays so that together they can co-create better communities? We do this by helping people make authentic human connections, deliver real business value, and treat change as a process, not an event. We have several upcoming classes that you won't want to miss. Sign up today at yourclearnextstep.com/events.
Well, welcome everyone, and hello. This is Sinikka Waugh. I'm so delighted to welcome you to another edition of the Even Better podcast. This is part of our ongoing mission here at Your Clear Next Step to help us all have even better days so that together we can co-create better communities. I mean, that's what it's all about here at the end. And I am so delighted. I am so delighted to welcome our guest Troy Roberts to the podcast today. Troy, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This is a joy. So, for those of you who don't know Troy, if you are anywhere in the Warren County area, I assure you, you have heard about Troy. You have met Troy. You've gotten a ping from Troy. You've been somewhere where Troy has been because Troy is, man, he is out and about. He is meeting people and he is making a difference. And this is part of why I am so delighted to have Troy on the podcast today because he is one of these people that is making the world a better place every day. So Troy is connecting with people. Troy is sharing his story. Troy is putting himself out there in ways that I've heard just little pieces of his story. And I know for sure that public speaking is not a thing that Troy believes that Troy is really originally comfortable with doing. This is not where Troy, I know I heard you say it once, Troy, that you did not think that public speaking was going to be a thing for you. And here you are. I know you do this sometimes. And here you are on a podcast, and every time I see you, you are connecting with more people, you're building relationships, you're building community, you're making this positive difference, and it's just so inspirational. I love this about you. I love this for you. I love this for Warren County. I love this for the people that you've connected with and the difference that you're making. And I just want your story out there, which is why you're here. So, Troy, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We kind of discussed this before, so I'm going to be professional, but at the same time, as an individual in recovery, the biggest way that we keep what we have and continue doing the right thing and continue to enforce the way of living that we have is by fully owning our truth,
Yeah.
right? So there's going to be certain aspects of my story that, I'm very transparent with, and that's just because it is a part of my journey, but also it kind of sets the scene for some of the hard work that I've done and been able to, get to where I am today. So with that being said, my journey, I am a man in recovery, right? I made a lot of mistakes in my life. Growing up, I had a pretty good childhood, to be quite honest with you. I had a mother who was very loving, single mom. Dad wasn't really, really present, but my mom was also dealing with an addiction of her own at the time. Um, she worked 12-hour shifts at Firestone. She was a hardworking woman in a factory plant that's full of men. I mean,
Mm.
theoretically and typically, they would say that what she did was a man's job. She was in a man's environment, but she also had a very strong work ethic. And she gave me everything I ever wanted, right? Like I'd never wanted for nothing, except for maybe time. But we'll get to that like later on. As I got older, I started to realize things. But as a young kid, I was showered with gifts. I had a half-court basketball court in my room. I had a pool table in my room, and this is all as a child, right?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, right. But this is also, at the time as a child, I thought I had the coolest mom in the world because I did, right? I was showered with material things, things that kept me busy, things that kept me occupied. Um, but, looking back at my childhood, I also realized that there were a lot of people coming over to our house, a lot of people that I didn't know. There was always new faces and things like that. But I was always like, Troy, go to your room and play. You got plenty to do. Troy, go to your room and spend time. You got plenty to do. And, I did admittedly have a lot to do. But as I got older, as we grow up and our brain starts to develop a little bit, I started to recognize patterns. I started to see things. And, by the time I got to middle school, I kind of started to put two and two together, like, hey, something's off, something isn't right. And, you know, I did what a, child usually does. And I went snooping around in my mom's room one day when she was at work and, I found narcotics, right? And that was the first time that I used because I picked up what I found and I started using.
Mm.
Um, I still remember, like my mom came home, obviously looking to indulge in, what I had already taken, and she found I was missing, and that's how she found out that I went into her room and used her substances, right? That was the very first time an interaction that her and I had where like she's like, "Oh my God, I set my child up for this." But at the same time, I feel like she was super embarrassed that, as a mother, I failed my child because this was in the house and like he found it because I put it there, right? Um, that was the very beginning of our relationship going from a cool mom and son relationship to a what kind of dynamic is this, right?
Yeah.
I eventually started, finding things on my own, doing things on my own, coming home under the influence of substances. And it got to the point where, she knew what I was doing and she took the approach of, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it with me rather than going out there and doing it by yourself in a dangerous sort of way and environment, right? And again, so here we go back to the, oh, I got the cool mom. I got the mom that I can do this with and things like that, right? And that's a very
Sorry,
toxic way.
how
Go
old were you at
ahead.
this point?
I was 16,
16. Okay.
16, 16, right? And that's a very toxic way for a mother and child to develop a relationship. Um, but I am going to sit here and say, and people can say this all they want, but like, because I'm putting this out there, this does not make my mother a bad person, right?
Yeah.
She was just misguided at the time and made some mistakes. Um, Constantly, having new boyfriends, things like that. And one of her biggest flaws was the fact that she had a poor taste in men. She had the work ethic of a man and a god, in my opinion, but she she didn't like to be alone, and because she didn't like to be alone, her standard for men was very low. She
Mm.
would allow abusive men to come around and treat her less than what she was worth, right? And I was subject to all of that to the point where, the last time I remember before I actually like left her house, I came home one night after work. And this is when we were living over on the west side of Des Moines. And I walked in, and the first thing that happened was I got a frying pan thrown at my head. And I could tell it's because she was withdrawing and she was going through a time where she obviously didn't have what she wanted. And I knew the reasons why she did it. And this is all built up, and it got to the point where I was like, you know what? That's it, mother. Like I'm leaving. I'm getting my keys. I'm packing a bag, and I'm out of here. I don't know where I'm going. I'll sleep in my car for all I care, but all I know is I cannot come home and deal with this no more. And I
Mm.
left, and I didn't talk to her again for probably about a year and a half. And I was resentful. I was upset. I was sad. I was angry. All of these things. And I was out there on my own, couch surfing, working a job as a telemarketer, still using myself. And eventually it got to the point where I was homeless and I called her up and I was like, Mom, I need to come home. I've hit my breaking point. I can't get it figured out on my own. And what I had found out is when I left Seneca, when I left that time and told her I was done, that was the wake up call she needed to put herself through treatment. And
Oh,
she had almost a year of sobriety in that time that I was gone.
oh, wow.
Yeah, right.
So you're
She
just let me paint this picture. So you're just a kid at this point. You're out on the streets, you're out on your own, you've got your car, and you've
Mhm,
not talked to your mom for a year and a half. And your
mhm.
mom at this point has gotten a wake-up call from this, and she's chosen sobriety at this
Yes.
point. And she's
Yep.
so she's getting clean and
Hmm.
you're out on your own.
That is correct.
Man,
That is
okay.
correct. I come back and like I lived with her for a little while, but at this point, like here's the unfortunate thing is like she had chosen sobriety and she had gotten sober herself, but I was knee deep in my own addiction at this point.
Yeah.
Right. I was smoking weed, but more importantly, I was experimenting heavily with methamphetamine at this time, right? So I had an addiction of my own. The very thing that I ran away from that she was struggling with is the habit that I picked up, and now as a teenager, I was fully engulfed in.
Yeah.
So my reasoning for being around wasn't to come back for a loving mother. My reasoning for being around is because I was a teenager drug addict with no direction, no sense of purpose, and I needed somewhere to stay.
Yeah.
And she noticed it, and I think she did the best that she could to deal with it. But I never thought about what that did to her, right? Like probably felt some sort of responsibility,
Yeah,
and
I can imagine.
our relationship was frictional. I would come, I would go, I'd leave, stay at a friend's house forever. She wouldn't know if I was alive or dead, go back and forth, go into jail. And in that time, she worked at Firestone. She ended up getting married to an individual out there that she worked with. Again, her taste in men, in my opinion, not the best. The relationship was abusive. It was toxic. He was an alcoholic, and they moved out to Cambridge, Iowa. And I was in another stint of homelessness,
Mm,
addiction, and needing somewhere to go, trying to sober up and get my life together. So she told me I could come out there and live. Well, his and I relationship was everything but, I mean, existent. It was non-existent, right? Um, it was abusive. It was built on rage, violence. Like if we were around each other, it would turn into arguments. It would turn into physicality. Um, but she always had a home open for me, right? She always had my room ready in case I needed it. And I was knee deep in, a meth addiction at this time. I also started using heroin, which was really the the beginning of my downfall, right?
mm,
Um, but sitting there and being subject to their relationship, it, I only intervened a couple times, right? Because my mom's just always like, "Hey, you got this," or "I got this. Just worry about yourself. Don't get involved in my stuff." He only does this when he's drinking, making all these excuses, right? And it got to the point where I just like I didn't want to come home unless I knew they were asleep. That way I wouldn't have to deal with or hear any of the things that were going on. And it got so bad to the point where Seneca, I remember like this, I still remember this very vividly, very, very vividly, right? It's like 3:30 in the morning. I get woke up by my mom. She comes downstairs, wakes me up very, very, very like abruptly. And she's like, Troy, you have 20 minutes to pack a bag, get whatever you need to get, and I need you to get out of here and not ever come back.
oh,
And like I'm just like, what? And she's like, I'm not gonna repeat myself. Pack your stuff and get out. And in that moment, I mean, I did what I was told, but I took it as you're choosing this abusive relationship and you're choosing this individual who doesn't treat you the way you should be treated over your own flesh and blood and child.
mm,
And so I did. I got my stuff and I left and I went and stayed at a friend's house. And then, like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, I got a knock on the door from a friend I haven't seen in forever. They tracked me down through, what I mean, word of mouth of where I was because I was very ashamed of where I was at the time. I was in a drug house, not anywhere ideal. Um, and I opened up the door and they're like, it's Troy, or my friend opened the door and they said, it's Troy here. And they came and got me and I went outside. It was two friends that I played baseball with growing up that shouldn't have had no idea where I was.
mm, mm,
But my buddy Randy had his phone out and he's like, Troy, he's like, didn't you say that your mom bought a house out in Cambridge? I'm like, yeah. Why? And he's like, what's the address? I was like, 117 Ray Street, Cambridge, Iowa. And he has his phone in his hand and he turns it around. He's like, brother, he's like, I don't know what to tell you, but I love you. And he hands me his phone and I read it and it's a news article saying that a woman was found murdered in in her house, and it was because of her husband, right? And I'm reading it. They didn't release the names or nothing yet. All they did was release a picture of the house and the address. And he's like, bro, he's like, that's your mom's house. And I mean, that moment right there was the moment that my addiction went from already very bad to like not caring about life, borderline suicidal, right?
yeah.
Um, she had been murdered by her husband, and I was also contacted to go and testify as a character witness during the murder trial. I had to do depositions with her murderer, which was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. And mind you, all this time I'm heavily, heavily under the influence of heroin, fentanyl, meth, all mixture, dude. And it got to the point where the first day of the murder trial, when I was asked to be put on the stand to testify as a character witness to the things that I seen, the way that he treated her and stuff, I was deemed uncredible as an uncredible witness because I showed up to the actual trial under the influence, right? They had to call for recess, ask for it to be pushed out, and I got some of the harshest feedback and biggest wake up call I ever gotten from my family, as well as the prosecutor, Tiffany Meredith, who told me, like, look, Troy, we basically have a slam dunk case here, but you showing up like this is not respectful to your mother, to your family, to her memory, or to yourself. You need to get your act together. So, I mean, I went back to my cousins and I sobered up for the night and came back and I was able to testify credibly. It
Wow.
was a slam dunk case, right? But I also was on the opposite side. The defense's approach, believe it or not, was that I killed my mother for the life insurance policy.
Mm.
So I had to take the stand and be questioned about that, right? Mentally, you can imagine all these things that it did and the type of mindset it put me in. Eventually got over that, but I mean, from this point on, Seneca, I down spiraled fast, right?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I down spiraled. I got involved with some pretty dangerous people, and I started trafficking narcotics, staying in a lifestyle. After that life insurance money, went, you know what I mean, ran out, and that's really where things just took a turn for the worse. Like I was willing to hurt anybody and everybody that I came across in order to sustain my own selfish desires, my own selfish way of living. I didn't care, right? Like I had this viewpoint that like because of what happened to my mother, I deserved and was entitled to treating people and distributing the same pain that I felt, right? Selfish. And eventually it led to the point where I got raided by the Mine Task Force, the Mid-Iowa Narcotics Enforcement Team,
Hmm.
and I was facing 35 years of prison for what I was doing. Sitting in jail, realizing that this is not only not what my mother would want for me, but everything I was doing, I was kind of using what happened to her as an excuse to behave the way I was behaving. And I did not want to do 35 years. I know I'm a very talented individual with a lot of potential. I was just lost.
Yeah.
And sitting in there, wondering what I'm going to do, I saw a flyer for a place called Harvest Academy.
Mm.
And I seen it was a 2-year program. And I don't know why, but I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna write the letter and I'm gonna figure it out. And I wrote a letter, I was interviewed, I was accepted, I went to court, and I had a very, I'm not gonna say lenient, I had an understanding judge and an understanding prosecutor who told me, like, Troy, against our better judgment, everything on paper, the charges right here, everything that you've done and have been doing, you deserve to go to prison. You deserve to serve this sentence, but we're going to give you the opportunity to go do this 2-year program. But just know if and when, they even said when, if and when you screw this up, you know what you're facing. Boom. 35 years, 2 years. Do the math, right? Like I
Okay.
went to this, I went to this program with every intention on just beating a prison sentence and not changing. But like something happened when I got there. The
Mm.
community, the camaraderie, the accountability, being around individuals who are just like me, maybe not with the same experiences, but
Mm.
like same experiences of regaining everything just to lose it again, or feeling lost and broken with nobody to hold them accountable, uh, in and out of the vicious cycle of addiction. That's who is here.
Yeah.
And when we're all united by the same common goal of, hey, we don't know how to get there, but we're going to help each other get there and we're going to figure it out together,
Mhm.
that is more powerful than I can ever explain, right? And I went from avoiding a prison sentence to refining myself. And I graduated the program. I discharged a 35-year suspended sentence. My probation officer showed up to my graduation and told me how proud of me he was. These are things that I never in a million years thought I'd experience, right? And even though I was discharged successfully and I had no legal bounds to be at Harvest anymore, the coolest thing about this program is they want you to leave when you're ready, not when you're done. And I was still scared, Seneca, right? I have no obligations anymore. I don't have a probation officer to report to. I don't have any sort of legal oversight. And now I'm done with this. And I was like, if I go out there, am I going to fail? I need more time. So I asked to stick around for another year. And I loved who I was becoming. I wanted to give back to the people that were coming in the program. I wanted to give back to the guys who were just like me, day one, wondering, is this going to work? Is this just another program? Can I even do this? And I wanted to stand as a living testament to them, like, yes, you can. And I'm going to show you the way because it was shown to me. And I eventually pursued staff and training. And here I am today. Like, I get the opportunity to make a career out of helping individuals. And one of my biggest roles and responsibilities now is marketing outreach. So you said earlier, the public speaking thing, telling my story, going out, networking, talking to people. Um, I do like doing it now because there's power in my story, there's power in my experiences, and there's also power in educating people that we are not defined by the worst mistake that we've ever made.
Oh man.
Yeah.
There's so much there. I want to pause for a minute. I want to first I want to say thank you, Troy. I appreciate your candor and the willingness that you have to share this story. And I often will start our podcast with a so who should be listening to this and who should tune in. And I knew your story would be captivating enough that people wouldn't tune out. They'd just be like, wait, I want to hear the rest of this. I want to hear.
Right,
And
right.
so before we go any further, I just want to pause because you said so many things that are really interesting for us to unpack. And one of them is, as you talked about the sense of community that you've had at
Mhm.
Harvest Academy, and
Yeah.
I won't get your words quite right because, and I'm going to have you maybe say them again or go back to kind of that idea there. One of the things that I really want to unpack is this idea of, I think you said something like, we don't know how we're going to get there. We don't know what's next or how it's going to go, but we know that we're all in this together and we're supporting each other and we're going to figure it
Yeah.
out together. It's something like that. And I think that's
Mhm.
so translatable. I think
Yeah.
there's something really really powerful about it. Tell me, can you tell me anything about how the sense of team, how the sense of community, how the sense of camaraderie played into your own recovery story, your own
Mhm.
moving forward story? How is that intentionally created at Harvest Academy? Because I think the idea of us doing something together, togetherness is
Yeah.
really important to success. What does that look like
Yeah.
for you? What does that look like at Harvest Academy?
So the importance of togetherness, especially, I mean, I'm talking about my demographic right now, but this can also be transferable and relatable to the sense of community just out there in general, right? But for the demographic that we serve, individuals coming in seeking recovery, seeking reform, pretty dark backgrounds that are trying to get it figured out, a lot of the times, especially in today's, society, there's stigma, right? And some of the stigma is once a drug addict, always a drug addict. Once a criminal, always a criminal. Once a failure, he's not going to get it figured out. We use lived experience, right? There's a reason why I wanted to stick around, and there's a reason why this program worked for me because the individuals that are teaching the program, the individuals that are standing with you side by side, are individuals with lived experience that have been through what you've been through.
Mm,
And because I have that lived experience, Seneca, because I have tasted rock bottom more times than I care to admit, but more importantly, got a ladder and was able to climb myself out of that hole. I have credibility to these guys. They're like, oh my God, we have a saying, if you want what I got, do what I do, right?
mm,
Not in the sense of like, do it because I said so and I got the power, but it's like, hey, if you want what I got, do what I do. You want a better life? Let me teach you and show you how. Do what I do. Move how I move. You want to be happy? Okay, do what I do. You know what I mean? So it's really that relatability and that lived experience, and that there is more power in being able to relate to somebody and connect to somebody than I think people actually give credit for,
mm.
right?
Yep. Yep. So
So,
this
and
is Yeah, this is applicable to I'm going to draw a parallel here to folks who are like, okay, Seneca, but I'm not in the demographic that Troy's talking about here, and that doesn't relate to me. What's translatable, what's transferable here? I think this is absolutely transferable to mentoring experiences, where as a
Mhm.
mentor to someone else, we're not saying I have all the answers to all the things. Like as a mentor, I have never stood in front of a room and said, "Hi, I'm Seneca, and I have all the answers to everything you could possibly ask." Good
Of course.
heavens, I don't have that. But sometimes when I'm being a mentor to someone, I can say, "Hey, you're on a step right there. I've been on that step right there. I have a lantern. I can light the step for that step right there. The rest of like there's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know, but that step, I've been on that step. I can help you
Right.
with that step right there. Lived experience. And the idea of mentoring someone else and offering that as a if you are a person who can be a mentor and you can offer that lived experience, you can share that with someone else. And if you are willing to listen, man, if you're willing to listen and hear someone else's learned experience, if you're willing to learn from that, I think there's power there.
Yeah, as well. But not only that, I think one of the best things, and I'm still learning this to this day because everybody that comes in here has something to teach and something to offer. So even if you are in that mentoring or that coach role, you also have to go into it understanding that whoever you're trying to mentor or coach could also mentor or coach you if you're open-minded enough. Like you have something to offer as well. I kid you not, Seneca. We have a student right now. I mean, I've been with the organization for 5 years. I would like to say I'm a little seasoned in this field, right? I would like to say that I got some knowledge under my belt, but I just had a conversation with a guy that's only been here 2 months, and he was having a very rough day, thinking about, potentially leaving, throwing it all away. I'd rather go to prison because that would be easier. So, had a conversation with him and was able to talk him off the ledge and kind of, level with him. But during that conversation, he said some things that just blew me away. I was like, hold on. You just taught me something, sir. So like, I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna put that in my tool belt. That way I can distribute that to somebody else later on in life.
Yeah.
And I openly vocalized that to him. I said, hey, you know what? I know my job is to guide you, but you just guided me. And I seen it in his eyes. When I said that, he was like, oh my God, like you're Troy though, like you're your staff here. Like what do you mean I taught you something? I'm like, that's your capability. And that right there not only strengthened our trust in each other, it strengthened our relationship, it strengthened our connection. And I also know that next time he has a bad day, that moment will replay in his mind and he'll be more susceptible to coming back to me to seek guidance than if I'd have just wrote him off, right?
Absolutely.
So to your point, the coach isn't always the coach.
Mhm.
Like don't coach isn't always the coach. You got to be a student, always, forever a student.
Absolutely. So this is gonna let me unpack one of the other things that you said that I want to go back to that I think is entirely transferable. You talked about there was something you said, and now I've completely forgotten the words, but it lends itself to this idea of a growth mindset of continuous learning. Like we're always learning, we're always growing. What can I do even better? How can I learn something more? What else can I learn? What else can I know? And I
Yes.
think there's something there that's really powerful. And I don't know how this is framed up at Harvest Academy. I don't know if this is just a Troy, if this is something that you bring special to the table, or if this is part of the part of the discipline and the structure there, but it is wildly, wildly transferable to all of us. We're going to
Mhm.
get further in life when we approach life with this growth mindset. If we
Yes.
approach life and say, I am what I am, I have what I have, I know what I know, and this is as good as it gets, it's not going to get any better from here. It's
Mhm.
not. It's
Right.
not going to get any better from here. But if we approach the world and we say, "Well, shoot, it could get better from here. I can learn something. What can I how can I learn from you? How can I draw from this situation? How can I be better tomorrow than I was today?" The world is open to so many
Yeah.
possibilities. So, how have you
Yeah.
seen that play out?
Well, honestly, I think the reason why it's so effective in our academy, again, I know this, your listeners don't necessarily maybe fit this particular demographic, but I'm going to use it anyways. Is because the guys that come here are broken and they've never really honestly tasted their full potential before,
Mm,
right? Like if you think about somebody that's hit rock bottom and has never really given themselves the opportunity to find out who they are or what they're capable of, but they come here for a 2 year reset and then we teach them, we build up their confidence, we put them in positions where they can utilize their skills, but then we also put them in uncomfortable positions. And here's the important part about that growth mindset you were talking about, right? We as humans, we as human beings, this is this human behavior, right? Like we're going to gravitate towards the things that we do well because we know we do them well, right? Like if you gave me the option, like Troy, would you rather go outside right now and play baseball or figure out an algebra equation? I'm like, oh, I played baseball growing up. That's one of my talents. I was no good at math, so I'm going over here. We avoid the things that are hard, right? But we also have a saying here. We are not here to tell you 90% of the things that you do right. We're here to highlight the 10% things that you don't do well so you can grow that number 90 up to 100,
mm,
right? So the growth mindset,
mhm.
I need to be placed in that algebra equation situation because I'm not good there, right? So I think getting out of your comfort zones will kill potential, right? Things are only uncomfortable until we make them comfortable, right? So the first time doing an algebra equation, because I don't know how to do it, I might feel like I'm incapable. My confidence might be low, but if I'm I don't want to use the word forced because forced is a little whatever, but if I'm placed in front of an algebra equation 10 days in a row, I guarantee you the second day, I'm still going to be uncomfortable. Day three, I may not get it, but day four, with another, it's going to start to get more comfortable because I get more exposure, I get more repetition, and then eventually I'm sitting there like, okay, I could play catch with a baseball right now, but now I have confidence in the area that I didn't think I was good at. So let me try to highlight that and grow a little bit more, right? So,
So I think I have a new quote that I'm going to take from you, Troy, and it
oh
is,
boy, copywritten. No.
yeah, copyright. I'll give you credit every time I use it, but comfort zones kill potential. That is a beautiful quote right there.
Absolutely.
Comfort zones kill potential. Okay, so let's keep going because I think there's a little bit more here that I want to unpack.
Yeah.
Among the things that I've heard you talk about and that that you shared, even you hinted at it here, you talk about ownership. So there's accountability. I heard you talk about your mom and you didn't you talked about some of her choices that you don't necessarily agree with her choices, but you didn't do blame. You took accountability for your actions and you invite her to take accountability for like there's accountability here. And I want to unpack some piece of this because there's some part of growth, there's some part of it's different from growth mindset, it's different from other things, but it's really important to all of our lives about taking accountability for what's ours, inviting others to take
Mhm.
accountability for what's theirs, but without
Mhm.
blaming, without judging, without like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's something there. Is that natural to you, Troy? Did you learn that? Is that taught? Where are you coming down on that?
Yeah, so that is not something I was born with. That is very much accredited to Harvest Academy in our program. This entire model, this entire program is based on accountability. Because at the end of the day, you're not able to control the actions of others, and nor should you. I mean, you know what I mean? But one thing that is guaranteed is you can always control what you do.
Mhm.
And, sometimes we're going to make mistakes, but if you're accountable to you, I mean, you can't continue to grow and your relationships, in my opinion, as well. If you're not going to take accountability, they're not going to work, right? But it does something for the individual. Like if you can raise your hand and say, "Hey, you know what? I fell short this week, and the number us not hitting that goal is a reflection of my work. I'm sorry. I'll do better." Like, imagine if everybody did that, right? Imagine if everybody took ownership and claimed accountability for where they fell short. Do you understand what that does to teams? Do you understand what that does to communities? Do you understand what that does to families? Right? Like nobody ever wants to be the one to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I fell short." But if something good happens, we hit goal this week, or you exceeded your expectations. Of course, everybody wants to raise their hand then and claim that. Everybody wants to claim that because it's good, right?
Mhm.
But, you know, there's so much power in taking accountability and ownership of where you fall short because when you own it and you take accountability of it, that is the first step to changing and correcting it,
Yeah.
right? And again, we as humans, we observe, and when we feel moved and we feel motivated and we feel inspired, we want to replicate,
Yeah.
right? We want to replicate that. So if I see somebody who's man enough or woman enough to raise their hand and say, "Hey, my fault. I fell short. That's on me. I'll do better." I've seen it before here at this academy. That's literally what we do. And there's something so inspiring about that. And it's like, okay, I can get vulnerable. I can accept responsibility. I can accept accountability because guess what? We're humans. We're flawed creations. It is what it is. We're gonna make mistakes, Seneca.
Yikes.
It's inevitable. Like
Right.
nobody's perfect, and people need to quit walking around like they can be. But
Right.
what you can do is you can own your mistakes and own your flaws and be like, hey, I'll do better.
Yeah. This was
I'll
an
do
off
better.
week. I'll do better next week.
I'll do better. I didn't show up the way I should, but guess what? I'm aware of it, and I'm gonna try my hardest to show up for you in the future.
Yeah.
So
I know now. I missed it. I was lazy or I wasn't paying attention or yeah.
right,
Yep.
yeah,
I blew it this week, but I'm
yeah,
gonna not blow it next week.
yeah. And without accountability, we're destined to repeat our behaviors.
Yep.
Without accountability, we're destined to repeat the behavior.
Yep. And
Right?
we don't want to repeat those. Not the ones that hold us back, for sure.
No.
For sure. Okay, so I want to get to kind of the last point. I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. The last thing that I want to get back to is this idea of relationship, because I think you've talked about this before. You hinted at it, and I see it modeled in the way you show up, the way I've seen you show up, the way the way other people talk about you. Like I said, oh, I'm going to see Troy. Oh, you're going to see Troy. Like everybody likes that when I'm talking to Troy. Oh, you get to
Yeah,
talk to Troy. That's so great. I love talking to Troy. So, um, relationships seem
yeah.
to be at the center of this is another is it a Troy thing? Is this a Harvest Academy thing? Is this natural to you? And the reason I'm asking is because I think it's something that we can learn from. I think there's something really, really intentional here about relationships. As we look forward and we see what we can learn out of your story and how others who, regardless of where you are in your life, when you're listening to this and we're listening to Troy's story, there's something there about relationships. What do you want us to hear about relationships, Troy?
They're essential. They're essential. I pride myself in being able to build relationships. I also pride myself in nurturing connections I already have and building new ones.
Yeah.
Because that's what keeps me on that's what keeps me on the straight path, right? Again, going back to, my story, like as you can probably imagine, the relationships I had prior to the relationships I had now were toxic. They were unethical, they were not professional, and they were dangerous, right? But now I've regained this new life, and it's like I found that my happiness and my continued success and my continued forward movement, it is based on relationships. It's based on connection. You alone can do it, but you can't do it alone,
Hmm.
right? Like that is one of our core, that's one of our eight principles here. Like you alone can do it, but you can't do it alone. And I love going around Warren County. I love just going everywhere and meeting new people and be like, hey, how can I help you? What initiatives are you involved in? Do you need a speaker? What do you need from me, right? And I think people can sense that genuine, feeling, and like I get it back from everybody.
Yeah.
Like Warren County has been extremely essential to my recovery and my success. And because of that, it's opened up a platform for me in other areas of the state. Um, but relationships are essential, and they're not one-sided. Put yourself out there for other people. But more importantly, like if you're networking or you're going to these events and you're meeting people, like it's not just a one and done. I believe in nurturing. After this podcast, if you think that you and I's relationship is done just because this podcast is over, you got another thing coming, Seneca, because we need to go grab coffee.
We need to go grab coffee. I
We need
hope
to
so,
grab
man.
coffee. That's called nurturing the relationship, right? Because who knows? Maybe there's one day that I need you or you need me. And because you and I had coffee and we had a great relationship and you felt the vibe, it was like, hey, this is genuine. You're having a rough day. Hey, I'm gonna call Troy. I see something that reminded me of you. I'm gonna call Seneca. Do you think that that thought would pop in my mind though if we didn't have a relationship and we weren't nurturing it?
Yep. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. Relationships take work and they're to your point, they're essential and we got to work at them. We can't just you don't just it's not one-sided. It takes discipline, it takes work, it takes
Right.
effort. Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So as we're getting close to time here, thinking about where we've been in this conversation and thinking the grand arc, how would you want to wrap this up? What closing thoughts would you want to leave our listeners with?
Life is extremely short, right?
Mm,
Um, Live it intentionally,
mm,
live in abundance, but more importantly, what we just talked about, go out there and build relationships with people, show up for people. You know what I mean? Like everybody's going through something, you know? But I think on another note, though, anybody's capable of change, right? Anybody's capable of change. I'm living proof of that. The men here at Harvest Academy that are doing the hard work every single day for 2 years straight are living proof of that. We are not defined by the worst mistakes we made, but we're also dependent on the support that we have. And I think that's one thing that Warren County has been extremely great about is the fact, like I had all the support in the world from my fellow brothers here at Harvest Academy, but when I started to insert myself into the community in Warren County, everybody welcomed me.
mm.
Right? I don't. I don't feel like I've ever done anything bad in my life. Like my rap sheet, it doesn't feel as long as it actually is because of the support I've gotten from the community, right? So I know I'm going off on a tangent, but that is something that is extremely important to me. Just because you don't have lived experience, even though we talked about it, you may not have ever had to have a substance abuse issue. You may not have ever had to gone to jail, but you want to know what one of the biggest impacts on my recovery actually was individuals like yourself that didn't come from the lifestyle that I once lived that still supported me anyways.
Mhm. Absolutely.
That has meant more to me than I could ever explain.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I love it. I love it.
yeah,
Oh man. So this would not be the Even Better podcast, Troy, if I did not ask my trademark question. What's making you
yeah,
even better these days?
connection,
Connection. Yeah.
connection. Connection with with my community here, and then connection outside of here. I have one friend of mine that I religiously go on coffee dates with, and we just shoot the breeze.
Mm.
And she's my Georgia, right? She's always in my corner, always supporting me, and I just yeah, connection for sure.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. So I wonder, as our listeners are listening, who is your connection, right? Who is that person that you can always have coffee with, and you can make sure you're maintaining that relationship with, and are you supporting them? Are you in their corner? And do you need to if you're not fostering a relationship like that where you got someone that you're always in their corner, maybe it's time.
Yeah,
Maybe it's time.
yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe it's time for sure.
I love it. So, Troy, if any of our listeners want to get a hold of you, of course they can reach out to us and we will happily connect them with you. But if they want to reach out to you directly, what's the best way for them to find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I have a social media link, but then also I'll be at Harvest Academy, Iowa. We have a website for that as well. But then, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to put my number on here, but I'm always open for contact. So
Sure.
you can reach me at 515-229-4779. And believe me when I say this, even if you just want to call to talk, I'm open. And I love coffee. So let's go get some coffee.
Get
Let's
some
get to know
coffee.
each other. Let's build a relationship.
I love it. I love it. Troy, thank you so much. It has been
Thank
a
you.
joy to spend this time with you. Thank you for your time today. I'm so grateful.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Seneca.
You bet.
See you soon for coffee?
Absolutely. Soon for coffee.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And to our listeners who joined in today, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope that I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed this. And I know for sure that you're taking away nuggets that you can apply. And on behalf of all of us here at Your Clear Next Step, we hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.